Hi, hello, and welcome, friends. We are back with another video. How are you doing? How are you feeling? It is your girl, Faded Alien, and we are here today with a interesting little paint challenge that was actually inspired by another piece. So this here may look like a normal classic Faded Alien piece, right? Cute little alien deer in a little field. Well, this was done with a little bit of a challenge. I actually spent 6 hours in a room with nothing but a red ring light and turned on the lights only when I was done, and this is the color outcome. So I saw this and I was like, maybe we should do this with green. And that's how we got here. But before we lock ourselves in for 6 hours of painting, I need to find an inspiration. And I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw this really cool diver's account with this incredible photo, and it got me to thinking, if there was a creature that was lurking in that water, what would it look like? And just how vast the ocean is, I figured, why not make a giant anglerfish? So that's exactly what I did, adding our scuba diver to the center and then our massive anglerfish in the background, kind of cascading that canyon light. And then I went ahead and used painter's tape and went around the edges and set up our room, and now we're ready to go green. Before I turned out the lights, I put all of my colors onto a paint pan so I wasn't able to see any bottles and have any cheating going on. So that being said, the color tonality is basically stripped or filtered to green, and I can't really tell what any color is. So instead of focusing on tone and color, I'm going to turn my attention to focus on texture. We have a lot of rocky outcropping that we're going to need to kind of texture and make it a huge kind of canyon. So what I did is I made a very neutral perceived base, and then I stippled that through, shading at the darkest most corners and then bringing in a rough stipple, still using my bamboo brush for the entire process and highlighting that with what I assumed to be white mixed in with the base shade. Like I said, I don't really have a point of color reference for this, but we're just focusing on textures and really building that. I also go in with a spatula using the lighter shade, and I kind of swivel that around, try to create some rocky outcroppings, kind of like Bob Ross, but you know, I tried. Once I'm happy with the highlight, I need to balance it back by bringing some darkness and some depth through, so then I start to add some perceived black to my base shade and start to make some shadows and peel that through into the heavy into the right corner, especially to really bring some depth back into the painting, and as well as around the edges of the canyon to help bring in some attention to the edges of the rock and further texture and sharpness. I'm gonna be so honest with you guys, the water was honestly the easiest part because it was just picking a very light kind of solid shade that I could still see my sketch lines through. So once I applied that and it got very solid, it was easy for me to kind of start to highlight and bring in some shadows using titanium white and thinning it to the water-based shade and pulling that through with a fan brush, and kind of giving some perceived light that way. Now we get to focus on our giant anglerfish. I will give myself some credit here. I do think the anglerfish was quite a good focus point to have this challenge on because it gives you a lot of texture to work with. Anglerfish are kind of knotty, bumpy, smooth in some parts, really gritty in others. They just have a lot of tiny knots, almost like a toad in texture. So I was really able to take advantage of that and use the perceived colors that I had on my palette and kind of use that to indicate different bumps and shadows through that method instead of focusing on color and how that shadow would be perceived instead. So doing that a bunch of times into the wrinkles, into the folds, adding warts, adding zits, adding all the nasty little stuff that makes the anglerfish really gross and chunky, and using the shadows to kind of implement implied rays. Focusing on the very forefront of our Anglerfish Leviathan's face, so the eyes and the mouth, I went in and I highlighted the eyes and gave them very small little beady eyes, and now I get to focus in on the mouth, lining the fish lips and then going in with a perceived kind of gray tone color and going around the teeth so that I could still see them once I add my shadows. After doing that, I go back into the anglerfish's stem lantern attachment, and I also add similar shadowing because I want that to have some depth to it as well, going in and filling in those very long razor-like teeth the anglerfish has. I'm trying to make it as a thin kind of grayish color. I can't really tell what it is, but just lighter than the mouth shade, but not as light as the eyes. So I'm shooting for like a medium between that, and I'm putting that all through the teeth. And then I'm making my 3 shades, so my base tooth shade, my highlight shade, and my shadow shade. And then I go through and add my highlight string and then my shadow string to the edges of the teeth and kind of sharpen those out with my dark perceived oral color. And then I'll go in at the very, very end with the mouth and super, super deepen that with my perceived black shade. So I want it to be dark, but not super intense yet, because we can still add depth to it and kind of make it cavernous in the mouth and still add to that Leviathan never-ending look. I might sound and look crazy right now. I'm not sure if you can see it, but I actually added tiny, tiny little bubbles in front of our scuba diver's tank. So it looks like he's still actively breathing as he's swimming up. So I did tiny, tiny little O's with my lightest perceived color. It was either titanium white or yellow at that point. I was just taking a swing at what it was and using those lightest shades to make tiny rings and dots near the snorkeling mask and near the scuba tube. You know what I'm talking about. After lifting all the bubbles towards the rocky surface, I realized I wanted to bring a little more attention back to the edges of the canyon and give it a little bit more of a crater look. So I started making tiny C's with my black tempera paint and did so very sporadically and more towards the edges of the canyon, just to kind of give it a light taper into the deeper holes and crevices of the rock. Really, really looking at my reference photo of the diver and that landscape to use that to my advantage with texture. I have to say, as an artist, this was such a fun challenge and such a simple challenge, really just changing one element to my art piece, taking a light and being able to have that shift and work with all the skills that I kind of doubted previously until I did this project really gave me a boost of confidence. And I really encourage you, if you have the chance to do a project like this, to definitely try your skill with it. It really, really helped me learn a lot of ways to kind of hone in the skills that I already have and what I should feel more confident in as an artist. So I highly implore you to do the single light color challenge if you're able to. Going back into our Leviathan for even more facial details, this time I'm creating more depth into the wrinkles and into the larger crevices of the face, so especially focusing more towards the eyes and kind of the almost snarl lines, if fish even have those, and just keeping those lines very, very tight-knit and very to the seam of the wrinkles, just to keep a predominant eye into the shadows, and then balancing that with final acts of highlighting the scales. I did decide to add a little bit of a bonus bait and made 2 tiny squids next to the eyes of our anglerfish as well for some final freakier details. After 6 hours in one room with nothing but a green light, paint, and some crazy blind faith, we now have our results. Are you ready?
Thieves and beggars, never shall we die. Yo ho, halls together, hoist the colors high.
Oh my gosh, it looks stunning, right? I know! But on top of that, even freaking cooler, you guys, we got a full freaking tape peel. This never happens to me, so yes, I recorded it, and yes, I'm absolutely sharing it with you because it's so satisfying. So without any further ado, here is our tape peely. So without any further ado, we're gonna peel this off. Oh, this was so fun. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining and hanging out. Let's see. Ooh, it's always so satisfying. And I taped it down to the rest of the sketchbook. I am so shook about the results. There are so many different colors in this piece. I had no idea, and it actually ended up blending pretty naturally to the ocean environment, so pleasantly surprised by that and super happy with how the rocks turned out. All the details and texture is exactly how I wanted it to be, and I just realized I need to just kind of let go of worry when it comes to color, because that tends to be one of my holdbacks, but more lessons have been learned, and I can't wait to continue another single color light challenge. What color do you think I should do next? I would love to know. And if you want to see us do any paint challenges live or just hang out and be creative, chaotic cosmos with us, be sure to hang out on Twitch with me at Faded Alien. We stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And here on YouTube, where I put all of our tutorials. If you ever want to check out any of our merch, I have 2 stores now. Can you believe it? So I have our 4th wall for all of our wearable merch and our printful for all of our posters and canvases. We will have new designs coming out very, very soon. Huge thank you to everyone who's been watching and showing support. Y'all literally mean so much. Thank you for everything. I cannot wait to have more videos out very, very soon. As always, remember to stay safe, stay positive, and stay creative. I will see you very, very soon. Bye, friends.